Hey everyone, this is Brianna with Smash Art Designs. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and check out my website for more tutorials like this. So today I'm going to be showing you how to remove blemishes and smooth the skin. It's important that you only remove blemishes unless otherwise stated by the client. You do not want to remove freckles, scars, moles, or anything like that. Those are facial features that makes that person unique. So again, you should only remove blemishes so you can make the portrait be its best self, and only remove specific features if the client states to. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here to this layer and we're going to duplicate it. And for this layer, we'll name it Spot Healing. Next, you're going to come over here to this band-aid looking icon, the Spot Healing brush tool. And you're going to also make sure that it's on the content aware. Now, on the Spot Healing layer, you're going to come back over to her face, and you're going to make sure that the size of the brush is slightly larger than the spot that you're going for. And what it does is it pulls from any texture and colors around that spot and drags it over there to match the rest of that area. So what you don't want to do is have a giant brush size like this and try to knock out the whole cheek in one go, because then you get some weird funky stuff going on here. So in this case, the smaller size the brush, the better it'll be. And you just keep clicking around on the spots that you want removed. Not only is it good for acne and red bumps, it's also good for irritation and inflammation. So if you have just like maybe red spots, it definitely helps remove that. It doesn't have to be, some kind of big bump or anything like that. And also in this part, see where the chin is, and then she has her neck. You do not want to make a brush size this big and try knocking out both the chin and the neck, because you start getting the chin going into the neck area, it just won't be good. So you want to make sure that nothing gets smudges or blurs the pixels where it shouldn't be. And you're just going to keep removing those spots. It doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, I'm also going to be showing you how to smooth the skin, which will help get rid of some of this irritation and these red marks. It's also quite noticeable on her lip that she has this little red mark, maybe from where she peeled the skin off and left a scab. Her lips are kind of chapped, so what we're going to do is we're also going to fix it here. See how it just kind of matches the rest of her lip? It works really well. It doesn't just have to be, on, bumps on her face. It also works well for the lips. Anything else, but you have to make sure you use your best judgment and that you aren't blurring and smudging those pixels into something it shouldn't be. And up in her forehead, a lot of these marks are actually freckles. So that's nothing I want to remove because that is a facial feature that is hers. And she also has a lot of freckles in her nose, so I won't really mess with that. And like I said, a lot of this redness will be solved whenever we smooth her face out. So I think that's pretty good for right now. I think her face looks already a whole lot better than what it was before, as you can see. Alright, so our next step is going to be duplicating the spot healing layer. So we're just gonna right click it, duplicate layer, and we're going to name this one Blur. Now on the blur layer, you're going to come up to Filter, Other, and hit High Pass. Now on this, when you have an up-close portrait of someone, you want to make sure that the radius is within maybe 20 to 27-ish pixels. I wouldn't really go any more than that or any less. Now if the person is more further away in the background, you might want to stick around to 10 to 15 pixels for the radius. But in this case, because it is a portrait, she is up close, we're going to stick around 20. So I actually think this is a good range for her. So we're going to hit OK. And then after that, you're going to go back up to Filter, you're going to go to Blur, and hopefully I say this right, but it is Gaussian blur. We're gonna click that. And for this one, you definitely don't want to go up in the higher pixels because you can't even see her face. So we're going to keep it down low. As you see, the lower you get, the more defined it is. It's going to be your choice if you want to. I like to have it just a little bit blurry, so I'm going to have to stick with 3 pixels for this. I would definitely stick between like 2.5 to 5 pixels, never really going less or above, but like I said, you really just have to use your judgment on this and what you think looks best. So I'm going to stick with 3 pixels. After that, you're going to stay on this blur layer. You're going to hit normal for the drop down, and you're going to go to linear light. So once you do linear light, you're going to head over to up here at the top. You're going to do image, adjustments, and invert. Now, in invert, you see a lot of the lighter halos, the lighter colors, and you see the darker colors. It looks funky, but it will help us out. So after that, you're still going to stay on the blur layer, and you're going to come down here to FX and go to blending options. Now, on this part, you only need to focus on this little area down here, specifically the part that says this layer. You don't need to worry about underlying layer. Now, there's this little line in between this side and this side. If you hold down the Alt key, you can split them. You can drag one to the dark side and see how it removed a whole bunch of those light, bright white lines and whatnot from her eyes, her hair, eyebrows, everything like that, because you made those lighter colors darker. So then you're going to hit the Alt key, and you're going to grab the side closest to the right on the black mark, and you're going to drag it to the light side. And how it removed those darker shadings, like specifically around her ears, her mouth, things like that. And now we're all done with that, so you're going to hit OK. Now our next thing we're going to do is add a masking layer to it. But what you need to do is hold down the Alt key and then hit it so you get the black. Now if you hadn't held down the Alt key, you would have got the white masking layer. You don't want that in this case, you want the black. So definitely make sure you hold down the Alt key before hitting that. So now that you have a black masking layer, you're going to come over here to your brush tool, and you're going to make sure that you have this with the soft edges. That way it just looks more natural, it blends, it smooths out much better than if it was this with no smoothing or blending. It just looks a lot more rough. So you're going to go with that. And because we are using a black masking layer, you want to make sure that you're brushing on her face with white, the opposite. So if it was a white masking layer, you'd want to switch these colors to black and brush. But like I said, because that isn't something we want to do, just make sure that you have this on white when you're painting. And what you do is you're just going to start brushing over her face with the white while you're on that masking layer. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And you're just gonna keep doing her face, and when you're going around like her eyes, I would definitely make it smaller so you can get in between there. The reason why I'm avoiding the eyebrows is because it's gonna lighten up those eyebrows like that. I personally don't like that. I feel like the darker the eyebrows, it makes her facial features pop out more. I felt like in her original picture she had darker colored eyebrows to begin with anyways. So for me, I'm not going to go over that in this masking layer. And see how it removes like the shininess to her face? It kind of helps remove like as if her face was really oily. So I'm just gonna keep going over this. Okay, I'm also going to be doing her eyes as well because it'll lighten them up and kind of make them pop. Just like that. There we go. And also how I mentioned before how she has chapped looking lips. I want that to be smoothed out so it doesn't look so cracked and whatnot. So we're just gonna go over that as well. And you notice how it's changing into a really pale pink? That's okay, because in our next step it will bring back some color to her lips, so you don't have to worry about it looking so dull. And the next thing is teeth. You might be thinking, oh, why not make it lighter? Why not make it brighter, you know? But in this case, when you go over it, it's gonna give it this gray, dull looking color. It just doesn't make your teeth look very good. So I just leave those alone. I think they're just fine the way they are. So I would not touch the teeth. It's not something I would recommend doing. But it is entirely up to you in that decision. Okay, once you've done with that, smoothing out her face, you're going to come up here to the opacity and you're going to change it. You can change it to 50. Usually I always like to go less than 50, just by a little, so I'm going to stick with 40. I think 40, 45 is always a good range. It's safer for me. I feel like it, you know, it doesn't have to be too significant in a change, so I just go with 40. So after that, you're all done with smoothing her face. Now, the next thing I do want to do, and it's completely optional, but I noticed her tooth right here. This one is looking a little bit yellow. I understand that it is further back in her mouth, so it is going to be darker looking, but I feel like it's significantly yellow than the rest of her teeth, even though it is pushed back a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create a new layer. After that, you're going to come over here to the clone stamp tool. Now, the clone stamp tool is kind of like the spot healing brush. It kind of grabs from your areas around, but you get to choose which area it's grabbing from. So you want to make sure you're now on the spot healing layer. You're going to click on that, and you're going to hold Alt and click from the layer you want to grab from, or from the spot you want to grab from. Now we're going to go back to layer 1, because once we start painting, it's be transferring to this layer, and it's going to be grabbing from this color. So we're just gonna go over it, and in this case you do not need to have a soft brush. You can have you can have this brush. It's really just a preference. Again, I'm just using soft because I think it blends better, and especially when you're using it in a small spot like this, you just don't want to have it be too specific looking. So I think that looks pretty good. And we're going to come up here on layer 1 and we're going to change the opacity to this as well. 25 actually looks really good. I think we'll stick to 25. And it still has a little bit of yellow, dark color looking, but it's a lot better than that other color, I believe. So we're going to do another new layer, and we're just going to hit the brush tool. And I'm using the color black, just plain old black. And I'm gonna go in here and kind of make like a shade, something like this. And take the smudge tool right here and just smudge out that black a little, just kind of not make it so rough around the edges. Nothing crazy. And we're gonna go back up to the opacity and we're gonna change this. So I think 15 actually looks good too. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with 10. 10 looks good. It's not too noticeable, but it's enough that it does make a difference, that it looks like there's a little shadow. It is darker because it is in the back of her mouth. So, and there you have it. You have your full picture. It looks good. The blemishes are gone. Her face is smooth. You don't see so much red and irritation. The shininess is gone. It looks really good. So, this was your before, and this is your after. And there you guys have it. So be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and please check out my website because there's more tutorials like this and there are pictures. So if you prefer that instead of video tutorials, definitely give it a look.